Hi there guys, this is Richard, your host, and welcome to another marvelous video. Necromorph. Grotesque reanimated biomasses victims of extraterrestrial infection. Explored. The Deadspace franchise is filled with despair, terror, and gloom, making the experience truly intriguing and deep. But if you're not one who cares about these things, the setting includes hallucinations, ancient structures, secret government plots, cultist religions, and yes, aliens. Big, bad, grotesque aliens. The games usually revolve around the protagonist Isaac Clarke, or one of the markers, or objects that emit concentrated and targeted electromagnetic rays that change and reanimate dead tissue on a cellular level, hence creating necromorphs. Necromorphs are the primary antagonists. The term necromorph comes from the terms Nekro and Morph, which mean dead and shape, respectively. These creatures aim to attack and infect anything that moves with the prime intent of converting all living beings into their kind. The reason why the Deadspace franchise took the gaming world by storm was its enriched lore and diversity of necromorphs, from tiny abominations to hulking monstrosities. Interestingly enough, the Necromorphs share a great deal of similarities with monsters from other films and games like the Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise, John Carpenter's The Thing, the creatures from the film Leviathan, etc. Like Xenomorphs, the Necromorphs use vents to travel and hide from prey to launch a surprise attack. Furthermore, they both are parasitic in nature and share the same suffix of morph. Both the Necromorphs and the Thing effectively die through incineration, and both are parasites that mold the host's body and develop appendages and tentacles to fight. The designs and shapes that the Necromorphs possess are sufficient for them to star as the prime antagonists of any indie horror film. With news that the Deadspace franchise is coming back from the dead, it's only wise to get a crisp recap of the things that have happened in the Deadspace universe and learn all we can about the Necromorphs. Let's begin, shall we?
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Deadspace 1. The first Deadspace game was set in a futuristic world of 2508, a world that was on the verge of extinction due to the indiscriminate exploitation of natural resources. But as is the nature of humanity, it found a way around this near-extinction level threat by exploring the far reaches of outer space in ships called planet crackers to harvest extraterrestrial resources of different barren planets. The first one of these planet crackers was called the USG Ishimura, which was carrying out an illegal mining project on a planet named Aegis 7. The backstory of the game reveals how an artificially created red marker was behind the issues that started to take place in the game. You should know that an alien black marker was found on Earth in 2214, and the government wished to have it replicated so that it could be weaponized. But they were dealing with science and a force that they didn't quite understand, and in the attempt to replicate the black marker, humans created organisms that infected corpses and reanimated them into monstrous abominations called the Necromorphs. The two key stakeholders in the franchise are the Earth's government and the people who follow Unitology, a new religion that worship the red markers. This religious movement came up after Michael Altman, the one who was contracted by the government to study the black marker. Nevertheless, on Aegis 7, a few colonists discover a red marker kept hidden. But after the discovery of the marker, several people, including the colonists and the crew of USG Ishimura, go through spells of hallucination and violent urges. This mental illness was ultimately followed by their transformation into necromorphs. Later, the authorities receive a distress signal, and an engineer named Isaac Clarke is sent on a maintenance ship named Kellyan to investigate and repair USG Ishimura. Isaac would have to find a solution to this unseen and unimaginable necromorph infestation on Aegis 7 while dealing with the troubles of his missing wife. Necromorphs. Creatures worse than and beyond death. As you already have a little idea, these creatures are nothing but reanimated corpses of humans and animals that were created because of a recombinant extraterrestrial infection. The resultant creatures are highly aggressive and attack anything that moves or any organism that is still alive and uninfected. They have a single-point agenda of acquiring more bodies to infect and convert so that the infection can reach all living organisms. While some believe that they are the heralds of humankind's ascension, they are nothing but the result of exposure to the markers and their enigmatic influence. These markers control the necromorphs, but the markers themselves are controlled by a group of extraordinarily huge entities called the Brethren Moon. These creatures are created when organisms of an entire planet get converted into necromorphs, either through infection or death. On a new planet that the necromorphs seek to ravage, their sole purpose is to infect every unfortunate organism so that a new Brethren Moon could be created. Infection. As already discussed, necromorphs come into existence due to markers. These are double helix-shaped structures that broadcast intense and concentrated electromagnetic signals that have the capability of altering any dead tissue at a cellular level. This transformation reanimates the dead tissues and the entirety of the dead organism into necromorphs. Furthermore, this signal also hampers the minds of intelligent and sentient life forms and results in mental disorders such as dementia or provoking homicidal and suicidal thoughts. This change of the mental and psychological state sets the stage for a necromorph infection. However, markers are not the only source of infection, and it can take place by virtue of the necromorph pathogens or the reanimated cells that were initially transformed because of the markers. As it happens, the most common type of necromorphs that spread the infection are infectors and swarms. An infector's sole purpose is to spread the necromorph infection, the infestation. It is typically formed of human legs and torso, while its wings are formed from the host's skin, fused to the broken legs. The infectors wrap the victim into their wings and extend the beak to stab into the skull to finally inject a yellow fluid. Living beings are known to suffer from symptoms like catatonia, paralysis, impaired breathing, etc. These symptoms are essentially mental and do not directly lead to death, but the victim becomes easier prey for the necromorphs to hunt. Victims who happen to ingest necromorph tissue undergo a gradual transformation and starve to death, eventually becoming feeders. But it is important to note that the host organism or tissue has to be dead for the necromorph pathogen to do its work. After the host's death, the recombinant properties of the infection come into action. The cellular functions go in what can be called a self-destruct overdrive, leading to the creation of new and strange biologically active compounds that serve as the energy storehouse of reanimated tissue and flesh for further mutations. This process is obnoxiously violent and equally quick. It so happens that bones break and they are reshaped and reconfigured to give the undead organism an absolutely new and grotesque form. The entire process takes place within seconds in an exothermic reaction, producing huge amounts of heat. This heat often leads the organism's blood to boil while it's still in the arteries and veins. This causes the skin to rupture. Since the reanimated corpse doesn't need organs, they're broken down and transformed into surplus musculature, which provides the necromorph with additional physical strength. Because they don't have to carry out vital biological processes like respiration and digestion, the necromorphs become extremely hardy and can survive in extreme environments, including space. The lack of vascular activity can be explained by the fact that they don't go through hemorrhaging when in space. Physiology and Types. A newly formed and pure necromorph tissue appears translucent and pink in color. These pink tissues can consume and reconstruct necrotic flesh, but when injected into a living organism's bloodstream, they can convert living flesh into necrotic flesh. Also, it's capable of independent movement and often sticks to surfaces. The type of necromorph that's being created always depends on the location, circumstances, and size of the host. For instance, lurkers are created from organs, human infants, dogs, etc., whereas stalkers are created from human twins. On the other hand, some necromorphs like Brute, Grave Robber, Tripod, etc. are created from more than one human. This indicates that necromorphs are capable of recombination and body melding. The most powerful necromorphs, however, are created when a necromorph tissue is inserted into the brain of an intelligent life form. A prime example of this sort of necromorph would be the Hunter, which was created by a crazy unitologist named Dr. Charles Mercer. The Hunter was an artificially manufactured regenerator-type necromorph. Unlike other usual necromorphs, the Hunter had extensive regenerative capabilities and could regenerate severed limbs within a short span of time. Another such necromorph was the Ubermorph. Behavior. Necromorphs have a reputation of being mindless killing machines, but in reality they are more intelligent than commonly perceived. They often display cooperative behavior and a tactical approach when going for a hunt. They often hunt in packs of mixed types and have quasi-specific roles, like stealth, ambush, etc. This naturally requires a certain degree of strategic planning and thinking, something which would not be possible without communication and intelligence. From sneaking up on their prey and playing dead to making use of their numbers to outnumber a victim, they do it all. In this regard, Necromorphs are similar to the Xenomorphs from the Alien franchise, because both the creatures use vents to travel and hide away from prey to launch a surprise attack. Furthermore, they both are parasitic in nature and share the same suffix of morph. They also have a collective intelligence that allows them to coordinate while attacking. It was initially believed that the nexus of this collective intelligence lay with powerful necromorphs such as the hive mind, but now it's a well-known fact that the Brethren moons control all necromorphs from incredibly long distances. When not engaged in hunting a live victim, the necromorphs wander around aimlessly in search of new victims. If a target is at a location that is unreachable, or when the target is at a considerable distance, the necromorphs attempt to intimidate the victim by growling and howling. Beyond pack tactics, the creatures have never been observed to interact directly with one another, with the exception of stalkers. Having said that, stalkers are known to have the most robust sense of pack cohesion and intelligence. In Deadspace 2, it was seen that one would peek around the corners to lure Isaac, and another would ambush from another direction, taking him by surprise. Furthermore, the necromorphs called fodders are known to carry and make use of melee weapons. This signals the fact that they might be evolving on a mental level. Strategic dismemberment. Various necromorphs have various vulnerabilities and disabilities. Several combatants have perished only because they didn't know the specific vulnerability of particular necromorphs. While some wounds that may kill necromorphs wouldn't kill humans, there are other wounds that would definitely kill humans but not necromorphs. For instance, a human can survive even if they lose all their limbs, but a necromorph would not. And while humans would die if their heads were severed, necromorphs would survive. But as is the case with all organic systems, blood loss leads to death. Even necromorphs ultimately become lifeless when enough blood is spilled by amputation of all limbs and head. This can also be achieved by shooting relentlessly at the torso, but this consumes a great deal of ammo. Another effective way of slaying one of these creatures is through burning them, because burns change the tissue structure of the organism. In this regard, they share an uncanny resemblance with the creature from John Carpenter's The Thing. Both the Necromorphs and The Thing effectively die through incineration, and both are parasites that mold the host's body and develop appendages and tentacles to fight. In fact, this parallel deepens in Deadspace 3, in which the setting is that of a frozen, icy planet, just like the setting of The Thing. If it's a guardian that you're facing, use only long-range or medium-range weapons like explosive canisters, etc., instead of short-range weapons. In the case of leapers, it's wise to cut off its arm and then shoot the head. Simply cutting an arm will take away its ability to run, but it can still leap towards the prey. The best way to kill one that is pregnant is to shoot the shoulders, as it doesn't involve bursting the sack. However, slashing off the two blades pretty much does the trick. Origin of the Necromorphs. The prequel story explained. The comics are set in 2508, centuries after humanity managed to narrowly evade extinction, caused due to indiscriminate exploitation of natural resources. We started to gather resources from uninhabited planets by cracking them, in 3 years using ships called the Planet Crackers. This story takes place in the second year of the mining operation on a planet named Aegis 7. The colonists and miners discovered a large monolith, which was later identified as a red marker, an object that was of theological importance to the unitologists. However, the red marker was an artificial copy of an original alien black marker. The discovery of the marker was soon followed by the destruction of the colony by reanimated and mutated corpses. If you wish for us to deep dive into this comic in another video, please feel free to let us know in the comments. Deadspace Downfall, animated film. The film is set after the events of the comics and before the events of the 2008 game. It opens with a video message from the security chief called Alyssa Vincent, in which she says that USG Ishimura was lost and that both the marker and the ship needed to be destroyed.
Ishimura and the artifact must be destroyed.
The story picks up from the discovery of the marker in the comics in an area that had shreds of evidence of ancient human mining. Later, the planet cracker Ishimura arrives, but by now the colony on Aegis 7 has suffered from catastrophic changes with several deaths and cases of violent psychosis. Soon, the marker is brought aboard the ship under the command of Captain Matthias and Dr. Kine. This led many of the Unitologist crew members of the ship to worship the marker, including one Samuel Irons, an engineer.
Who are you?
Samuel Irons, engineering specialist.
However, Alyssa Vincent is angered by the decision to bring the marker on board because she believes that it was the reason why the colony tore apart. But it's too late. because Necromorphs are overrunning the place in great numbers and violent forms. Vincent then takes her cis-member team to investigate a disturbance, only to find that the Necromorphs are killing people to take over the ship. But Necromorphs are not the only problem, because Alyssa's own team members have started to grow insane and kill one another. One of the crew people attempted to crash the Ishimura into Aegis 7, but that attempt was somehow thwarted. In the end, Alyssa Vincent only manages to make the video message and send a distress signal, which was received by the maintenance ship Kellyan.
I am so fucking sick of these fucking things.
Deadspace Aftermath animated film. This film is set after the events of Deadspace 1 and serves as a prequel to the second installment of the survival horror franchise. In Aftermath, we follow the accounts of 4 survivors from the ship USG O'Bannon that was sent to investigate the mysterious events on Aegis 7. After EarthGov loses contact with O'Bannon, EarthGov sends another ship to investigate and bring back the survivors, which included Chief Medical Officer Isabella Cho, Chief Science Officer Nolan Strauss, Engineer Alejandro Bogus, and Security Officer Nicholas Kuttner. It was en route to the EarthGov base called Titan Sprawl that these 4 survivors gave their accounts and described their horrific experiences. Kuttner's team was tasked with fixing the failing gravity on the facility, but they found fragments of the marker, which would have sold at a terribly high price to the right buyer. However, upon touching the piece of the marker, Kuttner suffered from a psychotic episode and damaged the device that was supposed to stabilize gravity, but he was soon restrained. After narrating this, Kuttner escaped, but only to suffer from another hallucination that caused him to go into the vacuum of space and die. On the other hand, Borges' story revealed that the team failed at fixing the gravity stabilizer and was forced to abandon Aegis 7. Subsequently, Aegis 7 was destroyed, and several members gave up their lives in the resultant damage. Interestingly enough, Borges knows too much about the marker and gets killed by the government agents after his interrogation. As for Strauss, he reveals that his mind has been taken over by the marker while he was researching the marker's effects on corpses and carcasses. He unknowingly unleashed a necromorph infestation on the ship O'Bannon. When Strauss came back to his senses, he left to save his family, but there he suffered from another violent hallucination and killed them instead. Because of the marker's impact on his mind, Strauss is kept alive. The most interesting of these was Cho's accounts, which revealed that she was the one who freed Kuttner from his restraints to help her fight the Necromorphs. She partnered with Borges and Strauss, who then decided to throw the piece of marker into the ship's drive in order to jump-start the ship and simultaneously destroy the marker. When the 4 made it to the drive room, they realized that they were the only survivors of the Necromorph infestation, and although they managed to destroy the Necromorphs, the ship remained stranded in the middle of nowhere. At the Titan Sprawl, she realizes that EarthGov plans to recreate a marker and refuses to join them in doing so.
I won't do it. You're playing God with human life. People deserve to know the truth.
Naturally, she's lobotomized and framed for being the terrorist that brought about the catastrophe on Aegis 7, USG Ishimura, and O'Bannon. Meanwhile, Strauss is kept in an asylum with Isaac. Deadspace Martyr novel. This novel is set in the year 2214 and hence serves as a prequel to the franchise. It details how humanity discovered the first black marker, an object that has the capacity to produce limitless energy, but at the same time, its power leads people to grow psychotic and reanimate corpses called necromorphs. The storyline essentially follows how unitology was born and what was the role of geophysicist Michael Altman, who was first hired to study the marker, but ended up unwillingly founding the religion of unitology that worshipped the markers. The Deadspace franchise wanted to convert the games into a transmedia franchise because the games were a hit, and they wanted to ride the commercial high tides. Deadspace Martyr was a result of this movie and focused on one of the core aspects of the game, i.e. unitology. Unitology was initially supposed to be a religion that focused on the representation of irrational thoughts and actions that were prompted by the unknown, but it was also supposed to ask its followers to look for simple answers and solutions in a complex world. Altman proved himself to be an unremarkable man who could do wonders when put in a difficult situation. There was also a second prequel novel named Deadspace Catalyst, which dealt with the period in which authorities were experimenting with the markers. Deadspace Remake on the verge. While fans would be a bit disheartened to know that the Deadspace remake has been pushed for a release in the latter part of 2022, there are some exciting new details around the game. Firstly, Isaac Clarke would speak in the original game's remake instead of being a silent protagonist, and Gunnar Wright would voice him in the way a polite Victorian child would speak. Moreover, this time around, Dismember is not going to be easy, but it is going to be more detailed, convincing, and realistic. With the recent innovations in simulated limb severing tech, one will be able to see flesh getting ripped apart and gauge the level of damage done. Deadspace games are not aptly credited for having diversity in weaponry, and with the new game, we hope that problem will get fixed. Furthermore, the remake will let the player actually float instead of hop around. It only makes sense because the games are essentially set in zero gravity. As far as the story is concerned, EA and Motive would largely stick to the source material and the universe set by the games, comics, etc. However, they would positively enrich the lore and make the remake fit perfectly in this broadened universe. This is definitely a welcome move because the original story was simply iconic.
And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.